No. I mean, just like any market, there'll be a lot of period of chop, a lot of period of testing people's patience where people are just unsure. But I think the 10,000 break is going to be very important psychologically to stop a lot of people out and kind of make them throw in the towel, which is very needed to see a bottom in crypto. And again, you just haven't seen, in all fairness, as much as Bitcoin's fallen, you have not seen. I was talking to someone yesterday, and this is more in the crypto market, but they were still talking about mortgaging their house to buy crypto. I mean, and that just right there tells me crypto's not bottoming yet. So, I mean, you see this, and I still think that investors are so used. I mean, think about this.
Are you still deep into crypto and wondering what's happening in 2023? In today's video, we will have Gareth Soloway, a 20 years experienced trader who predicted the 20,000 Bitcoin crash before, making a new Bitcoin price prediction for 2023. If you are trying to find out what to do next, if you should short now or wait for the bottom to come in and start riding the wave again, we have you covered. So pay close attention until the end so you can get all the information that can make or break you. But before we go into crypto, how is the current inflation? Are we in a deep recession again?
Yeah, I do think overall inflation's coming down, but my expectation is that inflation will remain sticky for multiple years, probably north of 2%, right? So even north of 3%, I could see it. And eventually, I think the Fed is going to have a moving target on when they'll stimulate. It probably won't be below or at 2%. They'll probably be forced to when we're nearing around that 3% level. But again, there's no doubt in my mind that inflation is coming down. It's just a matter of will it return to that transitory talk back then when it was 2% or less. And I really do not see that for many, many years. I think it's going to put the Fed in a very tough position where they're not going to be able to lower rates for quite a while. And it's going to put a lot of hurt on the US economy. I don't necessarily know if we're right in recession right now. I think there's still a fair amount of consumer spending. The jobs numbers, again, lagging indicator, but we're seeing the layoffs in these Fortune 500 companies almost every day, 10,000, 20,000 people. So it's coming. To me, it's like you see that huge tsunami wave out in the distance and you know it's coming. And I do think that, we'll be in a recession in 2023. It's just a matter of, is it the first half or the second half? But to me, there's no way, especially when you think about how the Fed got caught off guard again, saying it was transitory and it's not. Now they've overcompensated to the other side in terms of hiking rates. And I really do believe that they've overstepped again in this direction. But the problem is, based on what happened in the 70s, they're going to be very reluctant to back off and start cutting rates. And so what they're going to do is most likely stay the course, say they have to stay the course. And even when we get in a recession, they're not going to look to cut rates. They obviously won't hike anymore, but they won't be cutting rates for a significant amount of time. And what it's going to do is it's going to cause a spin out on the opposite side then. And it really feels like, I don't know if Michael gets this sense, but it seems like ever since the Fed's gotten involved in the economy more and more, there's always these huge bubbles and then these huge opposite reactions, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? The universe is supposed to come back to zero-sum game. And so when you have these monster bubbles, you have to have this reactionary period of negative growth to kind of compensate and bring us back to that level. But again, I'm not looking forward to those next few years. I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a traders and investors market, but we're going to have to get through it.
If inflation is coming down to 2 or 3%, is this the right opportunity to invest deep into crypto? Just check what Gareth has to say and his prediction.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and this is more in the crypto market, but they were still talking about mortgaging their house to buy crypto. And that just right there tells me crypto's not bottoming yet. So, you see this, and I still think that investors are so used. Think about this. We had the COVID collapse in March of 2020, and within a couple months, we were back to all-time highs. So even when investors say, oh, the stock market's down 20% or 25%, in their minds, it's like, oh, don't worry, a couple, 2, 3, 4 months, it'll be back to these all-time highs. And I think that that's the mentality that the Fed has now created, this mentality like, oh, I can't lose, I might be down, but it's a paper loss. And you don't get true bottoms until people fully give up and just say, never coming back.
Please.
Sorry, I was just going to add one more thing. And one of the things that I think is amazingly fascinating in terms of the psychology of investors, after '09, people were so burned that the majority of retail investors did not come back until like 2020. And notice how that was the beginning of the end of the bull market. And we talk about that. I still remember in like 2017 and 18, the biggest kind of headlines were like, the retail investor is still not involved in this market. But finally they came back. But again, that was the top. That's where they get burned, and you need to go through a period where now they're going to be gone again for a long period of time. When you live through periods of these .com bubbles, these other bubbles, you start to recognize the psychological, the signs of bubbles, and it helps make those calls. And a lot of people in the crypto space, this is their first time ever investing, right? So they just were going to be oblivious and kind of get caught up in the hype. But going into 2023, I still think there's more downside. Doesn't mean we can't have a small bounce, but I still think that we probably don't bottom out until May or June of 2023. I've really been likening the FTX blow up to what Lehman Brothers did to the stock market. And I noticed that when that happened, it took about 6 months for the stock market to bottom, and it took another 45% dip in the stock market, in the S&P 500. So I kind of mapped that out, and it gives me a general roadmap. And like we've both said here, that's subject to change, but that right now is giving me a general target of around 9,000 and a bottom maybe in May or June of 2023. And I do think that we will get regulation probably in the first half of 2023. It's going to be the best thing that ever happened to crypto over the long term, because transparency will mean that big money will finally start to take a serious look at cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. And that's the only way Bitcoin's going to see 100K or beyond, is if you get big money investing.
And right after we find the bottom, does pain finally goes away for investors?
No. I mean, just like any market, there'll be a lot of period of chop, a lot of period of testing people's patience, where people are just unsure. But I think the 10,000 break is going to be very important psychologically to stop a lot of people out and kind of make them throw in the towel, which is very needed to see a bottom in crypto. And again, you just haven't seen, in all fairness, as much as Bitcoin's fallen, you have not seen the panic out there in Bitcoin or in crypto that shows you a bottom's here yet.
Gareth was calling for 2022 that gold would be the best performing asset, and apparently he was right again. So the next question is, what's his prediction for 2023? Will gold thrive and be the #1 again, or can Bitcoin finally become the safe haven for investors and achieve huge numbers?
I do think Bitcoin bottoms, but it won't have that significant move up that'll beat gold. And I think, again, now that you have the Fed going to the sidelines, or at least moving in that direction versus hiking dramatically, I think that's going to be a benefit. It's going to keep the dollar from really screaming higher, in my opinion. So I think gold will surprise people. And again, I'm a student of history, and Michael, I know, is as well. And if you go back to the 70s, whether you say it's not quite equal to that, what we're going through now or not, it's very clear what gold did. And it had the same sort of kind of initial move up from 2018 to 2020, then this period of consolidation, even when inflation was soaring in the 70s, and then finally it played catch up in the late 70s, and going actually, I think it was close to a 10x back then. I don't think it does 10x now, obviously, but I still think that gold is a hated asset. I love assets that are hated personally. I think that's where money is not in yet, and that's where it will flow and kind of push itself up. So I think gold could be much, much higher, well above the all-time highs in 2023. Just like in 2022, I do think in terms of versus Bitcoin and the S&P. And I'm not going to, who knows about other smaller assets out there, but I do think that gold will be the outperformer again this next year. Following that, it might be Bitcoin after that.
Are there other undervalued opportunities out there?
For me, it's starting to look outside of the U.S. I still think the U.S. is going to have a lot of trouble, but I think there are countries out there that have been underinvested by most institutions for many, many years. And I think they're going to be the recipients of money flow. So, I'm definitely focused in on South American economies and their markets, Brazil, the EWZ. I think China is definitely interesting, though very risky. If we are seeing the end of zero COVID policy and maybe a warming up in relations, you have some stocks over there that are just incredibly discounted, even after their recent really big run. So I think that's where I'm kind of focused in on, plus gold miners, being defensive, and then being more of a trader in 2023.
Do you agree with Gareth? Will gold outperform Bitcoin in 2023 again, even if we reach the bottom and people start to jump in expecting the next bull run? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. Thanks.